Okay, so I'm here with, now this is Paige, Clyde, Ramona, and respectively filmmaker and the two actors from the film Patiri. Thank you, congratulations on welcome to our festival.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. So who's going to give me a synopsis?
I will give you a synopsis. Patiri in the Promised Land is about an immigrant that risks everything that can keep her safe in order to stay in the United States. So she befriends one person that she thinks will help her, damages that relationship, and then is set off alone into New York without anything to keep her safe, basically. So it's a story about immigration, a current.
Very current, yeah.
Yeah, very
Everywhere.
current story, yeah.
And how were you drawn to it? But as I know you've obviously done other projects, but how did you come to this?
I started to be a writer.
Sorry, what I
a
should
few
have asked
years
is,
back. I am the writer of the.
So it's your baby, I guess. It's probably the best way to describe it.
So what happened was that I was working on another project of mine, a web series, and we had many extras that were working on it. But one extra in particular came forward and thanked me, and she was so sweet. And she was one of the only ones that did thank me. And I asked her.
One of the only ones that did?
Yes, out of 45 people. There were one or other that were like, bye, thank you. But she was like, thank you so much, with such intention and such integrity. And it was as if I gave her the lead. So I was like, who is this person? And so I asked her who she was, because she had a British accent. She said she was
the best in the world.
Yes, she had.
Tell you like this.
She was from, yes, and she was from Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So that was really surprising to me. I was like, oh my God, what are you doing in New York from Zimbabwe? She started to tell me a little bit of her story and her name, which was Vangai. And I told her, you have a warrior's name. So from there, I began to be very interested in her story, and she was working very hard to figure out a way to stay in the United States. And this was before we had a new president. So
your latest president.
And then we had a new president, our latest president, and it became even more difficult. And I was watching her go through her journey of what she had to do to stay there, which was you're not allowed to have a job, but you must have money, and you have to find strangers in New York that will be compelled to help you and then become your sponsor and give you a job where you don't get paid, things like that. So she was working for an entire year toward that goal. So once we had a new president, I realized I needed to tell this story. So it's not completely Vangai's story, but it's parts of her story are in it. And then we add a little bit more drama. So
based on a true story?
It's based on a true story.
But how do you, I wouldn't even like to try and understand how you, not embellish, that's not the word I'm looking for, but, and pad out is the wrong way. I'm struggling a bit here to make the story much more interesting, or filmic, I suppose is the word I'm looking for, because you know the story, but then you've got to fill it in such a way that it's going to be more interesting than it already is. So what's the structure, how do you go about doing that?
I had to create an incident in which she loses everything, or has a possibility to lose everything and then loses everything.
So that's not really pub, but that's just to have something to hook on.
Yes, we needed a dramatic turn that would
but I also
propel the story.
You know, what Paige added to the story was my character, Ernest, and his plight with loneliness and sadness. The way these two characters come together and have, their own kind of love story on a certain level.
Right.
Two souls coming together who needed each other. And that was, Paige's concoction that she put into the story of me meeting this girl and kind of coming back to life. And we found each other, and we gave each other a safe haven for a little period of time. So I think that's what really, makes the story into a relationship and gives it an anchor.
Right.
And it was always presumably a silly question, written to be a script, because this could be written just to be a book. Sounds a bit patronising, but it would be a brilliant book. But was it always the intention to make this as a film, to make this filmic?
Yes, I wasn't quite sure if it was going to be a feature or a short, but I never really, yes, I wrote it to be a screenplay. And then the one other thing, Steve, that I want to add is that in every good story, you want to have a ticking time bomb of something could go wrong within a certain period of time, and that's where Ramona set off the ticket. If you can explain what your character did and what I mean by ticking time bomb.
Yeah, so basically I was an immigration officer, and so I gave her 48 hours to figure it out, which is what I think led to her desperation.
Yes.
Of like needing to find someone who.
Is that a does that in reality actually happen? I'm assuming that's a stupid question because I'm sure you researched this, but I guess the answer is yes. That is really exactly what happens.
The thing is, her time was up basically.
Yeah,
so she had a period of time. So when it is that we came in contact, I was telling her, hey, you have 48 hours left of your, say it was 3-month period.
Yeah.
Of getting a visa.
And I got that because Von Guy shared with me that every time she was given a task and then she completed the task and presented it and said, I've completed this task, they would say, but you didn't. Yeah. It's like, trying to renew your license or something. It's just like, it never, but where's your birth certificate and where's your, and you say, but you didn't tell me I needed that. So she spent a year constantly trying to figure out what it was they were looking at because they never gave her all the information, as did this woman. Didn't give her all the information until the last second where there were 48 hours left. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. I was just sort of thinking that a couple of things actually is, in a past life, I won't bore you why, but I did know lots of immigration officers, and you could see how jaded they were talking to people, because day in day, it's like every job that everyone does, you become, I don't know, disenfranchised, it becomes menial, and I suspect that was what you were meant to portray, that it was just another person to you and it's just another job, but that sort of leads on to sort of me thinking how lucky we are to have passports where you can virtually go anywhere and you don't really think about it. Because of an American passport, Canadian, British, we pretty much can, can't we?
Yes.
And it's only when you realise and look at stories like this isn't. I've seen something similar to this in another film where this woman got stuck in an immigration in America, and it was just awful to see, and she just made the wrong step. Well, actually, the idea of the story, so I'm going off piece here, but to give you an idea of how it does make you think, she left the country to go on, I don't know, some humanitarian task, went back to the US, and they wouldn't let her back in, even though she'd been living there for a few years. And it became, and it was based on a true story. It was an awful story, and this kind of reminds me of that. And it again, it makes me realise, as I did then, just how darn lucky we all are, to be honest.
And that's
because we've got no idea, haven't we?
No.
Frankly, you just say, oh yeah, I'm going to do a Britain next week. Oh, well, we've got to do nothing, just take my passport.
Right. And really, that's a great lead into why Von Guy, the lead actress in it, is not here. Because she had the means to come to this festival, and she got documentation from you and from a number of other people. But it came down to the fact that once she was here, she wasn't going to be able to prove to the United Kingdom that she had enough money in her bank account for them to let her back in, to know that she could take care of herself. And she has a lot of many jobs in the till coming up for herself, but she was so scared she wouldn't be able to get back in after trying so hard to stay. So I did say to her, that's kind of a wonderful problem. You've worked so hard to stay, and now you have to stay.
Yeah, so the irony
it was a weird problem.
The irony of the film is that kind of she's actually experiencing it.
Yes, terrible, now she can't leave. So anyway, thanks for that lead-in.
No, I do this all the time. I do go off piece, but it sincerely made me think of that film I saw, and that is a great parallel between those two films.
Right.
And I mean, when you watch something like this from the outside and you're building a story around, I mean, you're obviously intimately involved in it, so you can really see what's happening, and it must be terrible for them. But even, obviously you have empathy, and
right.
I don't know. I suppose the question is, did it make you think about things differently, and about the whole immigration situation that that's out there on the news all the time? Did it? I'm sure. I'm not saying did it change your opinion. I can imagine that I am sympathetic to the problems that these people are going through. I just wondered how it affected you.
Well, we have Ramona, who is from Trinidad, of course, and the point I make in that is that we're in New York City, and so we are in a melting pot, and we are filled with immigrants and know so many, and so it really has heightened my awareness. Once I moved to New York, I started befriending all of these people, whether they were waiting on me in my favorite diner, which is the diner would fall apart if those immigrants were not there.
Yeah,
There would
it's
be
the
no
same-
one
it's the same
cooking
in
and
London.
serving.
It's the same in the health
same in
service.
London. It's the same in so many cities. So to say let's get rid of all these people is just ridiculous. That's how the city. That's how most countries exist. Well, all of them.
Of course
do.
it is.
So yeah.
And I always say, look, you only have to go, in most people's cases, let's say, you know, in inverted commas, I hate saying it, an American, US citizen, but actually if you go back 1 or 2 generations, they're going to be immigrants, aren't they?
We all.
Well,
Yes.
In fact,
well,
you're
I
only
am
two.
a U.S. citizen. I was born in Miami, but
Yeah.
my parents
Well,
are
there you
from
go.
Trinidad.
You know.
They literally came, they had me, and I was 2 weeks old when I went back.
Yeah.
So I'm basically
My mother's South African, you know,
Right.
so, you know,
Oh,
I
that's
only
cool.
have to go back to that generation,
Yep.
so it's...
Swedish, Polish.
Yeah.
So,
we all are, it's the point I'm trying to make, really.
right. But I did live a very insulated life in the suburbs before coming to New York, and I really wasn't thinking about immigrants or immigration whatsoever. So I must say that I definitely became more worldly as I had my 2 or 3 years in New York, and it changed me because I suddenly felt compelled and had a need to tell this story to the world, just to make sure everyone's still paying attention. Because after a while, you can sleepwalk and think, well, it's not happening to me. It might be happening to that waiter, but I'm okay. So the movie does charge you with staying awake and keeping your eyes open.
Which is the last message of the film.
Right. Right. So
And obviously I know actors, you're acting this, but a simplistic question, how did you become involved? I'm not necessarily saying, well, we had a screen test in a bit, because I'm sure it's more than that, but how did it all come about for you two?
The universe. Really, no. Like,
Right place, right time?
I met her. She told me that I should take a class.
who's her?
This is Dana.
Sorry, this is Dana.
Yeah.
Yes. Dana.
You can't say hello, Dana, even though you're off camera.
Dana is the co-director and also is the magnificent producer, so it wouldn't have happened really without her.
And she is a magnificent producer
She's
and a magnificent person.
Unbelievable.
Yes, that is true.
We just don't have a chair for her. We don't have enough chairs.
So
but you met
happen to
Dana.
know-
Yes,
yeah,
I
yeah,
knew
I'm sure.
Dana. She suggested that I take this acting class, and Paige was in the acting class, and we connected.
She said that in the acting class, she said no one will hire her. She's having trouble getting roles because she has a Trinidadian, if that's the way to say it,
Yeah.
accent.
Good
And I was
job.
like, that's why I would hire you, because it's the coolest accent. Why would you not hire or wish she had an American accent? What would be the point of that?
And she just happened to be perfect for the role.
And then suddenly, 2 weeks later, I was like, I have a part for you, oddly enough.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened. And Clyde, how did it happen for you?
Well, Paige and I worked together on a personal level. I was doing coaching, and she came to me, and we talked about stuff, and I really encouraged her to write her story. And I directed her web series, The Real Paige Turner.
Who came up with that name?
P-A-G-E-B.
Yeah, my daughter's
She
Paige, that's
did.
all right.
Oh, yeah, so it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
And then when she was thinking about this particular film, she just wanted this character Ernest, and so she basically wrote it for me.
Yes, I did.
And that's how it happened. And I just felt very blessed to be part of this film.
Oh,
Yeah, and you're not just what did you say, the bookstore? You are... What
I'm
is
the
your
bookstore owner.
Bookstore owner.
Yes, I'm the bookstore owner.
But he's the heart story. He's the heart part of the story. And they're magnificent. Everyone in it is so wonderful. I'm so grateful that I met all of these magnificent people. I mean, when I said I wanted to make The Real Paige Turner, the web series, separate, Clyde said, I know all kinds of people. You should know Dana. You should know. And all of a sudden I was totally crewed up for a movie. And I had never even made a movie before. So this was my second thing I've ever written. Patiri and the Promised Land is my second project, second thing I've ever written. The first thing I've ever co-directed. Dana really held up most of the directing, and I was like, what do I do now? What do I do now? And Dana's like, okay, I'll take care of this
But
one.
now you've done it, I bet
and
you
then every
love
once in
it.
a while,
Now-
it's like, I'm keeping the monitor, I know what I want.
So you've done it now, but I bet you now love
Yes.
doing it. I
And-
suppose in hindsight.
right.
At the time, I don't know.
So now we're going to, Dana and I will co-direct another film that we're shooting in March in a couple of
That
weeks.
you wrote?
That I wrote as well. It's a ghost story. I don't know. I don't know how I get to each thing, but they just keep dropping in my lap. It's not like I'm like, what do I write now? It just is like, I have no choice. It's like, now I have to write this ghost story because this happened. Obviously, I need to write a ghost story. So I'm doing that.
Exit Zero.
Exit
Oh,
Zero,
okay.
yes.
So what's more
you.
enjoyable, directing or writing? Well, if you had to choose. Well, I shouldn't
I
ask that question. That's a tough
love
question.
writing. I love writing. It's very peaceful. It feels like I'm meditating. It doesn't feel like I'm working. And I have this gorgeous library in New York, the Society Library, that is just so peaceful. And I can just sit there and the whole day passes and I don't know what happened. And they're telling me I have to leave, which is quite upsetting. I could clearly work until 12 midnight. But so there's that. But the directing part of it is wonderful because I do think in pictures. And as I'm trusting myself more, I'm allowing myself to let that come to the forefront for myself. So, and I like acting, but...
So does that mean you were dealing with things that you may not necessarily have dealt with before, such as, I don't know, storyboarding? I don't know if you storyboarded this film, of course, but maybe you did. Or didn't you?
I'm going to storyboard the next one.
Oh, so you did it. You didn't?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it was something I'm definitely putting money into this time.
Okay, I just use that as a bad example.
Yeah.
Note to Steve,
But
don't mention storyboarding again.
I have the pictures in my head so specifically that I feel like I'm storyboarding without doing it. But I'm going to hire somebody to do it and walk them through it, and we'll figure it out.
I suppose what I meant was things, that was just using that as an example, but of course there's lots of new technical things that you may not, but suddenly you're embroiled in all of this, and it must have been an amazing thing.
Well, I never really thought about lighting before, or sound, or movement, and so I'm really like a filmmaker awakening. And now I watch movies and I'm like, ooh, look at that. And like I replay it and film it and then send it to Toru, our DP, and I'm like, I want this shot, which I did in the real in Patiri in the Promised Land. There's a scene in the Grand Central Station, and I saw it. I saw the movement of the camera in a shot in a daytime TV show for teenagers, but I was like, that's beautiful. And it's all these people, a person looking at the camera, and all of these people really close to the camera just passing him, but your eyes are focused on this man's eyes that are focusing on the camera, looking. Anyway, it was such a lovely shot. So I'm starting to just awaken as a filmmaker and see things differently. My world has changed. The way I look at the world has changed.
So you're a really good example of, I know a filmmaker that, it's something he said, it's stuck in my head from a couple of years ago, and he said, if you're a screenwriter and you get involved in filmmaking, do this, write 2 words. The 2 words were, it rains. And you can do that.
What?
It rains.
It
rains.
rains.
So you can do that in seconds, 2 seconds. He said, now you've got to film it.
Right.
So and then the point he was trying to make, which you've obviously now, you've experienced, is you've created it, but now you're building it, aren't you? You're well building, aren't you? So it must be an amazing thing to go from that to that.
Right.
Yeah, because you're now part of the whole process, aren't you? So
I mean, when you say that, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, it rains, and just one little drop of water goes down your glasses.
How are you going to shoot
and
that?
then
How
you
are
look
gonna
up and
light
it's
that?
hitting your face.
You know, is it gonna, who's the character? It's going to, and I suppose the point he was making, it's endless, isn't it?
Yeah,
because
it's
setting
really
up a
fun.
shot, but it really makes me think how difficult filmmaking is.
Right.
You know,
And
so
even as a writer, I'm learning to say less, just it rains. I know in my head what that's going to look like. It's going to have one drop going down your glasses. It's like, what's happening? And then another drop down your face, and suddenly you're, a deluge hits you. But I used, as a beginning writer, I was like, and then there's a water drop that goes down his glasses, and I can just say, it rains. So less is more. I'm learning to be a minimalist.
And just finally, this question is to all of you, so if you can each give me your own opinion. And you said something at the beginning, which is very interesting, is this film just happens to, it's part of, it's zeitgeisty really, isn't it, in terms of immigration and what's happening, not just in the US, but in Europe as well. But I'm going to use the US, and unfortunately I'm going to use your new president here.
Go for it.
No, don't worry, I'm not going to say, I have my own opinion,
right.
I'm sure you can guess what that is. But how do you feel about the whole, I can guess how you probably feel about the whole immigration question at the moment, but how do you what's your personal takes on what's happening in the US right now?
Oh boy.
Who wants to start?
I'll start.
I mean, you can keep it brief, but it'd just be interesting to...
You know, what's happening in the US right now is really an embarrassment and offensive to myself and most people I associate with.
Don't worry, we've got Brexit, right? So we've got our own embarrassment, so don't worry about it, okay?
You know, I think what makes this project so wonderful, and is really a reflection of how I'd like the world to be, is that it comes from community and it comes from inclusion.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you don't have inclusion, you have judgment, and then you have war. And so there's this, what's happening in America right now is a lot of anger and hostility and divisiveness. And so that level of separateness really causes a lot of angst and a lot of turmoil. And so it's a hard time because just energetically, it's heartbreaking, actually. It's heartbreaking every day. And so we do what we can to bring joy and inclusion and community to the world, and that's the way I see it.
Thank you. And you two, and I think, God, Clyde, that was such a brilliant answer. I can't
Yeah.
top that.
Well, what he said. No, but
Yeah, please.
as he said, it's an embarrassment, and it's such an ignorant point of view. And I feel as though so much happens within the home, if that makes sense. Like, there are so many other issues that stem from Americans. And so to pinpoint everyone else as the bad guys, it's really, really unfortunate. Especially because I feel as though there are more pressing matters that should be dealt with.
Absolutely.
Like gun control, like
Yeah,
we just
absolutely.
had
Yeah,
another
of course,
shooting.
yeah.
Right, in Florida.
And
It's got to
was
get
not-
past the NRA. I see. I'm trying to remain apolitical.
And
yeah.
just, thank you. You reminded me of something. The way immigrants are being represented right now, by this government are criminals and drug dealers.
Yeah, they're vilified, aren't they?
And it's so
And
offensive.
terrorists.
Being a born and bred Manhattan guy, and my parents, Italy and Romania, it's the cornerstone of our country, and our president is married to an immigrant.
For the second time, actually.
I mean, the whole thing is just ridiculous and
it's
offensive.
absurd.
Okay.
All right, to tie it up. I feel like I'm in an airplane and I've been hijacked. And the hijacker doesn't know how to fly a plane. He won't let anyone else fly the plane. And we are just sort of captive in this crazy ride. So it feels out of control. I feel like there's no one in charge. And I've never felt that living in the United States. But I've lived my life as a person that I know I can't feed the world, so I'll feed one person. And make this film, I just feel like this was my gesture really to Von Guy herself, to this young woman. We're here,
okay.
and you're not
Thank you.
alone. And there's like this whole world behind you. And it's my gesture. It's my one meal that I can serve.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, that was brilliant.
Thank you, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was brilliant. Thank you.
I just sold 3 books.
You've got an entrepreneur's spirit, Patiri.
I'm going to Columbia and I'm going to be a journalist.
You have 2 days to fill this paperwork out.
What?
I have absolutely just no desire to meet anyone. I just don't.
You're lonely.
Get the forms that are necessary, bring them back to me, and then we can refile for a visa for you.
When Charlie died, you just stopped caring about everything, even friends. I think we should help her.
How am I supposed to do this in 48 hours?
Where are you living?
Here and there?
Do you have any idea where she might have gone?
Is everything a lie? What the hell is your name?
Let me explain. I can't live in Zimbabwe.
It's not my problem.
I have no home. Please. Please.
Bluebird, I know it's time. You always say you'll fly away, and then I wish so hard you'd lied. Oh, please don't